Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. Our game with myself, Shane Stapleton, and Michael Verney, who's down at Gordon Elliott's yard, or you've pulled in just after being down there, haven't you?
Yeah, I have indeed. I just pulled in here in trim. Yeah, plenty
You
of
got a
chatting
trim?
with. Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, very appropriate indeed. Yeah, just going through his Cheltenham Festival team. Always a very exciting time of the year. Cheltenham's a mad time because even people that have only a glancing interest in racing will have a bet. No, probably yourself included, I'd say. So I'll fill you in with all the intel, Shane. Pick up tomorrow's paper.
So tell us, over the weekend, what games did you get your eyes over at the weekend?
Yeah, Limerick, Dublin on Saturday. I was in for it, but I got in late. But I was in for the second half, and then for the football as well. And I was down in Wexford Park yesterday. My God, it was so cold down in Wexford Park yesterday. My feet are still warming up. I swear to God, it was the sunny southeast has a lot to answer for. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, let's start off with the game between Wexford and Clare. We were hoping to have Billy Byrne on the show, but technical issues at the moment are preventing that from happening.
He's no problem banging a goal or a couple of goals back in the day, but a bit of problem with the technology.
Yeah, well, look, we'll forgive him for that. We had him on the show before and he was great, but look, we'll hopefully get it sorted at some stage. A third draw in a row for Wexford, which is quite unusual. Offaly, Kilkenny, and now Clare. What's going on?
Unusual, I would say, and as someone said to me last night, it's completely unheard of. Like I couldn't remember a time. Wexford, funny enough, did draw 3 times the year they won the Leinster Championship, didn't they? They drew 3 times within the round robin. So maybe they have a bit of history of it. And it's all been like yesterday. It's mad. Like Lee Chin went off after 26 minutes, and I wrote my piece this morning. Like there was an audible groan around Wexford Park because Kevin Foley had limped off with a knee injury before that, and you're kind of thinking Wexford are going to be up against it here, minus their main man, but they found a way to get a result. Despite probably having the breeze in the second half, they probably should have been able to get more on the board in the second half than they did. Interestingly, with a gale at both teams' backs, both of them lost the half with the wind. Isn't that mad? Like, it just shows it how hurling has changed. Against Offaly, it was 15 against 13. They did very, very well probably to get a result there. And they probably did very well to get a result against Kilkenny first time out, who would have felt aggrieved by not getting the 2 points. So they've gotten the draw in peculiar circumstances, but I think in all cases they'd probably be happy with the draw. And it was good yesterday. As I said, Foley was gone off, Chin was gone off, and the likes of Conor Hearn just powered into it. Seamus Casey, who was kind of on the periphery before Chin went off, all of a sudden he was on the freeze and he stuck the chest out. He had a free about 80 yards out, hit it short, took the return about 50 yards out and put it over the bar. He won the penalty. I don't know if you saw you and Nisha were going on about reverse hand passes a week or two ago. His reverse hand pass for Dunbar's goal chance was outrageous.
What a save by Broderick as well.
Like that was Dunbar brought it into about, I'd say 8-9 yards, and he bounced it. He bounced it in front of him, which was kind of at him, but it was such a good save, like an outrageously good save. I think both teams would probably be happy coming out of there with a point for different reasons. Like Brian Lohan said that Clare were totally outfought and were second to every breaking ball in the first half. Mark Rogers came in at half-time along with Peter Duggan, made a big impact, as did Shane Meehan when he came in. I don't know if you saw it, but he took down a puck out at one stage, like just one hand in the air, little flick of the wrist, touched it away to himself and then put it over the bar, and a couple of lovely touches. But a lot of kind of new faces on show for both teams. And yeah, I'd say both would be happy enough. Both are unbeaten throughout the league. Wexford with 3 draws, Clare with 2 draws. And a win. Clare obviously in pole position to reach the knockout stages, you'd imagine, from here on in. But yeah, a real kind of a throwback game. Like 113-16 is like half-time scoring in modern Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah, and I look at the amount of chances that Limerick scored on Saturday night, that they created 57 scoring chances. And I was doing a piece for the Sunday Times, and I was like, it's a bit like that old quip you'd hear from a barfly whereby, I've kind of spilt more than you'll ever drink in your life. I've spilt more beer than you'll ever drink in your life, because they had 24 wides or 24 missed chances. There could be a block down in there, or a saved goal chance or whatever that doesn't constitute a wide. And Dublin scored 118. But look, we'll come back to that game in a little while. But 113-16, bit of an uninspiring game, I have to say, watching it on TV. I couldn't get there to that game. I thought Shane Meehan made a good impact off the bench for Clare. He's a player that's kind of coming to the boil, a bit like Mark Rogers, who's obviously probably a little bit ahead of him in the pecking order at the moment. The way David Fitzgerald is scoring these points, and the frequency and the power of the running straight up the... If Clare won in All-Ireland, you wouldn't be shocked at him getting hurler of the year. He has that sort of Austin Gleeson-esque sort of power in his running, and obviously has the hurling to go with it. We already mentioned Keane Broderick. That save was at 1-8 to 10 points for Wexford. So they would have gone 4 points ahead, which in such a tight game could have been decisive at that stage. Like you said about Seamus Casey, he in front of our eyes, he almost developed as a ball winner. Now, maybe that's a little unfair to him. Maybe he's been kind of doing it and we're just not noticing as much. But the ball was sticking. He won the penalty himself. Like, he caught a lovely ball across before winning that penalty. And like you said, Corey Byrne Dunbar looks like a real player as well. So, yeah, positives for both teams. Bit of a bland, probably forgettable game, but a lot to like all the same. Do you want to say something more about it?
Yeah, you do learn a lot about boys. It's grand. Summer hurling is great, but you do learn a hell of a lot about boys on a blistery, blustery, cold, blustery. It was a miserable day. It was so cold. Like, I can't imagine lads trying to come in and make an impact in the game. And in fairness, a lot of the subs did make an impact. Meehan came in, you'd imagine from, like, I know he was doing a warm-up up and down the sideline, but just really kind of difficult conditions to come in. And you learn a hell of a lot about boys in conditions like that, more to do with character than what they're actually going to do, maybe between the white lines. And just from a Wexford point of view, I thought Shane Reck was very good. He started wing back. Conor Hearn, as I mentioned, middle of the field. Richie Lawler kind of came back nearly wing back in the second half. I don't know what that was about, but he was very, very effective there as well. Seamus Casey too. And from a Clare point of view, I'd say learned a good bit more even about Darren Owen, Keane Galvin. I totally agree with you on David Fitzgerald. He's actually pulled back in the 6th minute for overcarrying, which I thought was bonkers. I thought he was fouled about 3 times. Ball ended up in the net and he got pulled for overcarrying. He actually took about 10 steps in the second half and got away with it.
He pushes his luck all the time on that, doesn't he?
He does, but it's kind of worth the risk, because the couple of strides that allow him to open up mean that he's actually gone away from the opposition marker. So it's nearly worth the risk of being pulled every now and then. But he's such a beautiful striker of the ball. And like, I don't know if I don't think I'm wrong in saying that a couple of years ago, I don't know if this would have been his type of game, if you get me. I don't know if he would have showed up with 5 points in this type of game, but I think he's turned into a real leader. And particularly without some of the other kind of marquee personnel, I think he has probably grown. He's already a big man, but he's probably grown a foot, I'd say. And even Brian Lohan was just talking after, he's just saying Shane O'Donnell's not going to play league. Tony Kelly is where he should be at the minute to try and get back for the first round of Munster. So, yeah, like, their championship team is going to be a hell of a lot different than what we saw in Wexford Park yesterday. but those guys to come in for the 5 or 10 minutes, or even to play a half in a big game, they've got a fair bit of experience in the guys now that wouldn't have played much county hurling up until maybe this time last year.
Yeah, actually, a good comment here from Traumspieler. He says, Verney, you're forgetting the championship starts in April when it's likely to be very wintry, just like it was last year. Championship should be back to May without doubt. It's summer sport. It used to be called summer hurling, as probably plenty of people know. But the other thing that frustrated me about Clare is there was a lot of this shooting in low percentage situations again. And, and I keep saying Dermot Ryan is just such an excellent player in so many ways, but sometimes he takes on shots. Some days he scores 4 points. Some days he has some shots that I just don't understand why he's taking them on. And obviously, this isn't really a focus point for management too, because it seems to be just a case of we'll get off enough shots and we'll eventually score enough.
Yeah, he kind of took a shot over the shoulder underneath the stand. I think it was to put them one up at deep in injury time, actually. And it was a real low percentage shot going into the breeze as well. Just something else that I just kind of wanted to note. As good as a forward as Mark Rodgers is, he's a really, really good defender. He's brilliant defensively. Like, he's getting back. And I remember even seeing him the day Tommy O'Connell done him in Cusack Park a couple of weeks ago for the goal. And you could see how thick he was, because I'd say he takes a fair bit of pride in his defending. He was the one, he got back, I think, he put over a point in the 61st minute. And I just have beside it, what a defender. Because he was after tracking back, I think he was the one nearly to set up the move with a hook running back nearly on his own 45. But him and Peter Duggan made a big impact off the bench, and you could tell Brian Lohan probably wasn't happy with what he'd seen in the first half, and they added a fair bit of energy along with Shane Meaton going into the second half. He also had an interesting take on the Fitzgibbon as well. About being down players. He said, like, last weekend was a difficult weekend. He said it was a bad weekend. We were down 10 players. But he said you can take that kind of one of two ways. He said, I think it's unbelievable to have 10 lads involved in a Fitzgibbon kind of weekend, or playing in the latter stages of Fitzgibbon. And if you look at it, Shane Mean has enhanced his case. You'd say throughout the Fitzgibbon, I'd say Darragh Lohan has become a much better player throughout the Fitzgibbon and the exposure he's got as well. I think any manager worth his corn will see the benefit of playing these games. Mark Rodgers has probably grown a fair bit from last year's Fitzgibbon, I'd say as well. That was a springboard for him into summer. So I think the managers, Brian Lohan has obviously won a Fitzgibbon in UL as well. And even John Kiley be the same. They realise the benefit of them. They realise the importance of the exposure to probably playing lads that they could potentially mark over the next decade or so if they do get in and get a county jersey.
Yeah, it feels like it's a race against time with every county at the moment to get lads back from injury before championship starts, because, like, obviously players are generally going to get their surgeries, if they've delayed them. If they're one of those ones that can play through them, they're going to do them over the winter. Let's get back before the league, during the league, towards the end of the league or whatever. Then you've got Fitzgibbon and league games thrown in on top of it. Then you've new players you want to test out. It's just a bit of a nightmare. It's a perfect storm of, teams are going to be under so much pressure, which generally means lads get overplayed to some degree, which is tough for both the colleges and the county teams. But of course, that all falls back on the players. But we might move on to the Limerick game against Dublin. Didn't even realise you were in Croke Park, because I had my head down buried doing articles or whatever. But Limerick were sensational. I mean, Garrod Hegarty, the way he set up that goal in the first 15 seconds of the game, like a 15-yard, one-handed, nonchalant, brilliant flick straight into the paw of Donegal Dulig, or Dolig, I should say, and straight into the back of the net. The goal for Tom Morrissey before half-time, the one that sort of broke open the game, because Dublin had gotten back quite close. An over-the-top stick pass under pressure. And he scored, I think, 4 points as well for play, including one. His helmet had been dislodged and damaged. He had to go and change into a white lid. And I was like, is that Kyle Hayes or is that Hegarty? Straight away intercepts a puck out, puts it over the bar, back over to the sideline, give me back my helmet, back with the black lid again, and on he goes. I thought it was a hurler of, and I'm saying everyone's hurler of the year all of a sudden, but it was a hurler of the year in weight and performance.
He was, he looked like a man on a mission. He was obviously, he probably had his worst year in a Limerick shirt last year. He was one of, am I right in saying he was the only one nominated for an All-Star? I think he might have been. Although he had a good second half of the All-Ireland final. Like he opened up on Saturday night like he didn't look capable of opening up at any stage last year. Like he never, when he usually gets a ball and he goes past the tackle and he just opens up. Like he did that several times the other night. I don't think that happened at any stage last year. And I don't know if maybe it's a case of with him, it's more of a freshness thing rather than doing a really, really heavy load. Maybe actually, I think he might have spoke last year after the All-Ireland final about how the pressure of, trying to deliver these All-Ireland final performances the whole time kind of ate him up a small bit, and he maybe was overthinking it a small bit. But like that, from a chase and pack point of view, that was scary the other night. Just from him now. I'm not even talking about anybody else, because you mentioned that I think it was 3 points he got against Westmeath and helped turn the game as well. He looked in scary form for this time of the year. But funnily enough, when you say it, like the way as condensed as it is, he just needs to maintain that form for another couple of months going into Munster, and I'm sure he'll be managed and to make sure that he doesn't peak too soon or whatever. But he was fantastic the other night. I was actually down. We did just a thing with work the other day, so I wasn't actually in the media area. I was down in the premium area, actually. Would you believe?
Oh, a bit of buzz going, was there?
Yeah. So
Right.
like it's actually kind of cool to see it from that level. And just even to see the ground he was eating up the other night. Yeah, it was a joy to watch, and he had goals in his mind nearly every time he got the ball, didn't he? There was even one where he just flicked it over the bar, but he was looking for a goal. If it was on, he was going for it, and yeah, he looked in ridiculous form the other night.
Yeah, that's what the best forwards do. They test to see, okay, is there something going to open up here? And then they're like, okay, I'll just accept the point at this stage. And like, the way he's playing is unbelievable. Cathal O'Neill playing at centre back scored 4 points. Now, you could say at times was the defence a little bit open up through the centre. You look at Dublin, and they could have scored 3 goals in the first half. Cian O'Sullivan blazed one over after 14 minutes. Sean Curry drew a brilliant save from Nicky Quaid after 20 minutes. And then Cian O'Sullivan, he had another shot that clipped the back of Barry Nash's helmet and went out for a 65, which was popped over by Donald Burke. Just 27 minutes, something like that. And they were back to within a point. Sorry, they were back to within a point. And then Limerick just pushed clear before half-time. But they did leave goal chances behind them, which won't please John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk. So, is Cathal O'Neill an option for centre-back? Yeah. I mean, of course, this was very early in terms of his exposure to that position. But if it's a case that Kyle Hayes isn't available for the summer when that comes around, and look, I think everybody knows what's going on there at the moment. And obviously, you and I are not lawyers, and we're not going to talk about it too much. And other counties have had their issues as well. So let nobody here sort of, take a fit of the vapors over him performing the other day. You might disagree with it and so on, but I'm just saying that you could very quickly look like a hypocrite if your county has done the same thing and so on and so forth. But you could imagine Kyle Hayes, if he wasn't available, that Cathal O'Neill could slip in there and give that, like, he is such a phenomenal athlete. Now, he's not the same size as Hayes, but he's still a big man, and he's some man to travel. You could imagine him doing a similar job at wing back.
Yeah, he kind of has an unusual strike. He doesn't strike through the ball. It's always very high, but he's so accurate, isn't he? Like, he's so accurate. Like, I'd say he's probably got an 80 to 90% shot to score success. And it seems like it's funny in hurling nowadays, you can do as much damage from the half back line as you can from half forward at times. And he was definitely doing that the other night. Like, defensively.
You can't.
No, I can't. Well,
I can't.
you know what? The way the ball has changed, I always say when anyone asks, about what's the ball like in hurling, I always say, well, if I can put the ball over from the middle of the field, there's something wrong with the ball. But it's gas. Like, Limerick are going for 5 in a row. You kind of nearly should know everything about them. David Reedy has played 2 league games centre back. Cathal O'Neill has played a league game centre back. Do you know what I mean? They're really trying out different options for different scenarios. If Declan Hannon's not fit, or if something happens in a game, like the man that started centre back in the All-Ireland semi-final and final hasn't played centre back yet this year, Will O'Donoghue. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, everything is very, very fluid with them. You'd have to say. It was very, you could be not only impressed by Limerick the other night. Like, they ended up putting up a monster score. Like, listen, on the flip side of that, it was men against boys at different stages. I couldn't believe what I was watching, even with puck outs and Dublin standing off, like, and letting the likes of a Gerard Hegarty have like acres of space to go into and not engaging nearly as much as you'd expect. Now, there were probably a couple of caveats to it as well. They tried to start probably the best team they had available. That meant Chris Crummey started centre-back, having not played a game for Dublin in 2 years and having played very little club hurling, and he's not that long back, I believe, as well. Donal Burke was playing his first competitive game since the All-Ireland quarter-final last year. Danny Sutcliffe was playing his first competitive game in a few weeks, as similar with Ronan Hayes, with different knocks and stuff like that. Funny enough, actually, I met Eamon Dillon there the other night. He was a great old character.
He
But
was playing against my team yesterday morning in goal.
Was he?
In goal.
Oh, right. Okay. That's he was. I said it to him. He was gone soft. He watched most of it from inside, actually, from the comfort of inside. But he's just saying, like, about even it's funny, like, when you go to a match like that and you're after stepping out of it the last couple of years, like, you really would miss that type of a scenario. Nice crowd in Croke Park on a Saturday night and being the focal point. But he's a good old character. I must get him onto the show actually someday. A good fella, and a great experience he obviously had from his inter-county career. But Dublin would be disappointed with their show on the other night, and it looked like, you can say Limerick are flying it. Limerick are not really flying it. Like, they're going well for this time of the year, and it was a bit of an indictment maybe of where Dublin are at the minute, and where they are at in year 2 under Micheál Dunne, where you're kind of wondering, we saw bits and pieces last year, but you're kind of really puzzled as to where they actually are and how much have they come on and what way they play, and that's with the caveat of the injuries and the goal chances and stuff like that as well. But I wouldn't. You couldn't be impressed with them the other night.
No, but for a period of the first half, they did quite well. Now, I did look at the team and say to myself, right, Chris Crummey hasn't played for Dublin in quite some time, and he tried his heart out. But I know there's probably more in him. Once or twice, maybe got swallowed up and so on and so forth. But still, like, he's a brilliant player, but probably not his best day. Donal Burke was taken off early enough for him, and he's supposed to be the leading player. Didn't score from play. He's only just back after being out since the All-Ireland quarter-final defeat to Clare last year.
Smart enough kind of taking him off too. I know things weren't going well, but I'd say they had a number in their head of how many minutes he needed to play and when he needed to come off too,
Yeah, Ronan Hayes, he's been out for a while. So I looked at it and I thought, okay, this is not a full-strength Dublin team here. Plus, they're also trying to rush lads in because they have had a huge amount of injury issues. Now, I'm not trying to give them a total kind of pass here. I'm definitely not. But I do think we have to be realistic. And, like, to be fair to Limerick, it's not their strongest team either. So you have to take that into account also. I just wanted to mention on Eamon Trollier-Dillon, where do you think he played in goals on Sunday morning in the league for St. Finbarrs?
Venue.
No, what position?
You told me he played in goals.
Oh, did I mention that already? Sorry, I have a million different things.
You actually said, where did he play in goals for St. Finbarrs? I was like, is he on about the venue the game was being played in?
Oh, God. Look, I've just a million and one different things in my head that I want to say. But another thing I wanted to say, just back to the Hayes thing briefly, right? So his sentencing has been pushed back to March 20th. And I was just thinking, look, people know that this can go a certain number of ways. And imagine, let's say he is available for the summer, right? I'm thinking, like John Kiley said, he had no hesitation in picking him. If he wants to, like, at some point, if he does play in the championship, he's going to have to go through this. And I mean that as a manager and as a player. Whatever about the rights and wrongs of the case. We're not lawyers. We're not going to talk about that. But if he is going to be playing for Limerick this summer, at some stage, there is going to be a game whereby he's put in front, John Kiley's in front of the media. The player is out in front of a crowd. It's going to happen. And also, if Kiley's going to play one of his best players this summer, he's got to give him game time. And between now and sentencing, there's 2 more league games that he's available for. Now, we won't know if he's available for guaranteed 2 games. There could be knockout. So, championship that will then start in April. So, if he was to, wrap him up in cotton wool and keep him away in the meantime, and then all of a sudden, his first time appearing at all, is in a huge Munster Championship match. So I just think they're kind of thinking, okay, let's just get it out of the way now. Whatever about the rights and wrongs once again. And let's just do it, see what the reaction is, deal with the reaction, but it's not in a game where it's be all and end all. So, look, he got a couple of cheers. Once or twice he got a couple of boos. And there was one stage when Danny Sutcliffe got yellow carded for a high hit. And John Kiley and Sutcliffe were exchanging verbals, but he was brilliant. He was quietly brilliant throughout the game. Just the way he kept moving the ball around, driving forward, tackling hard. Like, you could see once again, like, this guy is an absolute focal point of the team. Like, fair enough if people want to say he shouldn't be playing, the county shouldn't be putting him out there, all that kind of stuff because of how what the jury decided. But just if you're to isolate it in terms of playing personnel, he's one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, well, listen, we're not going to get into the rights and wrongs or anything. I'd say Kylie, and he said it after, he said he looked at it from an athlete point of view, and he said he's been training for the last 3 months, and he put him out to play a game, and he says he's picking who's available at this minute in time. And as you say there, he's, thinking to a longer picture of where if he has him available for the summer that he's going to have game time in him, and I imagine he'd start the next game, and I'd say he'd start the next game after that as well. And that's kind of that, and we'll just have to see how it plays out, because obviously it's very hard. You can't comment on anything outside of that. But how did he play the other night? I would be similar to you. I'd say, yeah, very, very quietly effective at times. I always said his defensive abilities are totally underrated because of what we see with him marauding forward. But yeah, I think he's a very, very good defender as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just in terms of Dublin, they just need absolutely everyone on the pitch, and they need to get them all game time. We'll move on to the next game. What was the next game that you probably saw the most of?
Yeah, bits and pieces of Cork and Waterford. I just have to say, Shane, firstly, that Cork jersey is the most hideous thing I've ever seen. I couldn't get, it was awful. Oh my God, it was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, viewers, get your thoughts in. What did you make of that jersey?
Well, the only one that I've seen worse is that yellow one that they had out last year. Oh my word! Like these, I don't know who's putting these together now. And then you have the big sponsor on the front. I thought they were I think they're awful looking.
Yeah, to me, it's like they were trying to put that bit of sort of lightning and whatever. And I was like, are they going for that sort of Arsenal look from the 1990s? Remember the Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp type jersey with the lightning bolt going through it? Yeah, I didn't think it worked particularly well.
I just don't understand why they didn't wear the red. Like, they were on home soil against a team that were wearing white.
How you sell jerseys if you don't wear it?
I don't know if there's any selling that joke.
Yeah. Just in terms of Cork then, to go 10 points ahead was really, really impressive. But to then be pulled back to within 2, okay, the positive is that they won a tight game after losing a tight one against Kilkenny. And in these games, what's going on in terms of the consistency? They were so bad against Kilkenny for a while, then so good. Here, they were so good, then they went so bad. Jack O'Connor, I mean, they have to be able to get something out of Jack Connor. Like in the last couple of championships, we haven't seen much from him here. But for him to be able to run all the way from his own 65 and into the 21 and finish a goal chance, and Waterford set up, this is what we said before, Waterford often bring lads out to the 45, completely vacate their own 45 for their own puck outs. If you lose the puck out, this can happen. Like, to me, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I know, it's a strange tactic, and that's probably been, I think they're begging for that type of thing to happen, to be honest with you, when you set up like that. Listen, this was a very kind of funny game in the sense of, like, the one thing and the thing that the Cork lads really clung on to last year was how consistent they were outside of the Kilkenny League semi-final. They've been thoroughly, and that was league included last year, league and championship. They've been thoroughly inconsistent so far this year. And they've had patches in games where they've just been completely out of it. First 25 minutes against Kilkenny, probably last 15 or 20 minutes yesterday against Waterford, different stages of the Clare game as well. And that has to be a worry. And just on something you were saying about, teams that are in trouble trying to get lads back, Waterford are definitely in that boat. They have, some of their best players, ready to come back over the coming weeks. But like, Stephen Bennett, Tyg de Borca, Shane Bennett, Irla Daly. It's grand having them to come back. And it's the same with Clare, with Tony Kelly. But you're still not going to be match fit. It's the same with Dublin with Owen O'Donnell, who I believe is going to miss the guts of about 10 weeks, I think, all told, with a hamstring injury. And Dublin have a couple of more lads like that. It's grand having them and saying what X is to come back or Y is to come back. But the championship is a bit different now. Like, it's nearly creeping up on us. It's about 8 weeks from now, I'd say, nearly. Is it 8 or 9 weeks from today, nearly?
Like that,
yeah. And it's wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Like, you're not going to be eased back into a championship. You have to get results straight away, and you need to have fit lads on the pitch. So it's fine, and I think Davy's happier with where some of his lads are, and they're getting close. Conor Prunty as well. I think he'll feature in 2 weeks' time. but it's still very, very difficult. How do you get a pattern with how you're playing, and how do you, lads, like, from your own time playing, that it's, playing beside a lad consistently, getting that communication, almost knowing what he's going to do. He knows what you're going to do, but it's from consistently playing and getting used to that game time, repetition. And a lot of teams are going to go into championship without that repetition and without that familiarity, you'd say, with the fellas around them. Like with Clare, with Shane O'Donnell, that's that's a scenario that they've made themselves, like, and they're more than happy with that. But a lot of other teams have lads only coming back from injury. Like Tyg de Burke is coming back in, and he's one of the best hurlers in the country, but he's had a knock that's kept him out for about 10 months by the time he gets back. Do you know what I mean? He don't just slip back in seamlessly. So there's a good few counties, I'd probably say Dublin, Waterford in particular, Wexford as well, Liam McGovern, Conor MacDonald,
O'Keefe, where's he?
O'Keefe haven't been seen yet. Matt O'Hanlon
Liam Ryan.
Matt O'Hanlon made the 26 yesterday. It's kind of fine saying that they're all coming back, and they have a fair bit of muscle memory from playing for the guts of the last decade. But it's not just as seamless as getting them back in, and everything's going to be perfect. Far from it, and they're going to need time to acclimatise.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this Waterford team, and again, it's a continuation of what we saw last year. And you're looking at Desi Hutchinson out the field, and you're thinking get him close to goal, and you're looking at Darragh Lyons man marking Tony Kelly in the full back line. And I'm looking at this game here, and I'm thinking, like, Billy Nolan is obviously brilliant for Rowan Moore at centre back, but having him named as a wing back outfield, for intercounty, when I think he's the best goalkeeper that's available to play for Waterford. Obviously Stephen O'Keefe isn't available. I'd have him in the goal, because it's very different playing centre back as a sweeping centre back versus having to face up to a pacey forward who's going to run at you all day, because you can sort of judge the play a little bit at club level. You don't probably have to keep your man, be pressed up on him quite as much. So I just don't see how that works. And like, they're picking players, to me, not always suited their position or based on a philosophy that isn't yet working. You look at the full forward line and you're wondering, like, why isn't there someone in there? The one time that Sean Walsh was in there and a 50-50 ball went in and it broke his way, he was able to chop it to the net. So it's just so frustrating to watch as somebody, I don't have any massive graw for Waterford, no more than any of the other teams that would be coming up against Tipperary, I suppose. But like, and then I look at the sweeper at the other end, and I'm once or twice I was looking at it and I was like, the sweeper has been really passive here. I can't remember who exactly it was, but there was a player being taken on in the left corner forward as we were looking at it on TV. And the sweeper, rather than coming across and helping out his man, who managed to sort of stop up his man for a second, but then the man was able to turn and pop it over the bar again. Sorry, apologies, I can't remember who it was. But get across. That sweeper just stood back in the square and be like, okay, I'll be here if they get through for a goal. But I'm like, well, other players are going to get back, especially this Waterford team, the way they play. Get over and stop the thing at source, rather than admiring a point going over the bar and then being like, sure, I'll be ready for the short puck. To me, I just don't get it. And, they've been together probably 16 months or whatever at this stage. You'd think you'd kind of understand a little bit more about how this can progress. But right now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I just don't see where this is going to go in terms of like playing Cork and Tipperary and Clare and Limerick in championship. I just don't get it. They had
that third quarter blues again. They have had it in the 3 league games so far this year, where they just Cork steamrolled them after the break, and the game was over. Now they managed to get themselves back into it, but you just can't switch off for those periods of times in big games. I just have to ask you. You obviously saw the game in its entirety. I was only seeing bits and pieces. Like, what, Cork went 10 or 11 up, I think. Did Cork take the foot off, or did Wexford, put the foot down, or a mixture of both?
Look, isn't it one of those things? It's always very hard to tell. Like, you do have to give Waterford credit, and the likes of Conor Sheehan came off the bench. He got himself a couple of scores. Peter Hogan came in, made a bit of an impact. So,
Jamie Barron came in and looked lively enough by all accounts, did he?
Yeah, and obviously he is one of the most crucial players that they have, and we've seen in the past. Remember that time when he hadn't played all year and he came on played against Galway and Thurles and was just unbelievable.
Up,
so, but he's a couple of years on now. So I'm not saying he's an old player, but he's been around a long time, so it might be harder to do that. But again, back to Joe Canning, who would know Davy Fitz very, very well from LIT, but he was defending Davy to some degree last night on the Sunday game, and he was like, well, but they're having shots. And, I kind of referenced already that Limerick had 57 shots, and they scored 33 of them. But, to be fair, and you can understand why Joe would be defending a guy that he knows quite well. And Dowling was like, but they're missing them. And Canning was saying, Limerick shoot from out the field. And Dowling was saying, but yeah, they score enough. And they basically agreed that Waterford don't have an outball. I just can't understand how you wouldn't always have at least one man close to goal so that the opposition are kept honest and that they have to keep one and generally two inside their own 14, which means that the players shooting from further out the field are probably going to be under less pressure. Is this not all am I being too simplistic?
No, I don't think so, particularly when you have Mikey Kiley in your ranks. He's a great focal point. If you had to leave one up, at least kind of leave him up. But it is a bit puzzling when their best performance of last year by a country mile was against Tipperary, where, they played with the extra man and they're going to play the extra man, but they played two up, and they played two up as high as you could play them up. And they had that kind of threat inside. I listened to it after last night. Davy's expletive rant after, it was gas. It was like he was having just like a conversation with me or you, like, the way when you throw in a few F-bombs just in normal conversation. But I'd say the boys on WLR were scratching their head because they would have had to cut out X and Y. Like, he was just throwing them into kind of normal language, but he was quite upbeat about where they are. And just see a comment in there about Mark Fitz as well. Like, he is a cracker, isn't he? Like, I'm a big fan of Mark Fitz, and he's had a very, very busy time as well. But that's the sort of player you can build a defence around for probably the guts of the next decade. The raw materials are still there. It just is a bit frustrating how they play at times, and to me, how it looks like they're shooting themselves in the foot a small bit as well. And I just don't think they're great to look at. A couple of years ago, I love watching Waterford play, and like, you can say the end justifies the means if you want to. The end isn't justifying the means at the minute, but a couple of years ago, Waterford were brilliant to look at. It was kind of swashbuckling, gung ho, not all out attack, but very, very attack minded, putting up big scores, threatening the goal a lot. You couldn't say that's the case now.
Okay, can I just ask you about Kilkenny against Offaly? So it finished up 126 to 119. Offaly were up by 6 in the second half, so that'll tell you a big turnaround after the break. I think at the start of the second half, Kilkenny went on a run of 10 points to 1, and maybe the Owen Cody's shot could have been stopped. That went to the back of the net. Charlie Mitchell, to be fair to him, he got a goal late on, and he's, like, in fairness, he played quite well. But the Kilkenny supporters at half-time down in Nolan Park, they must have been scratching their heads seeing them 6 points down. You must have been scratching your head. You didn't know which way to turn looking at your home county beating your true loves, Kilkenny. But, like, to be fair, if you're in Nolan Park, you must be scratching your head watching this.
Yeah, I got a fair shock now when the update came through at half-time, 14-8, like 14 points against Kilkenny in Nolan Park in a half of hurling is fair old shooting. Just from chatting to people on the ground, Offaly were very impressive in the first half. Kilkenny were very wasteful, and they also, like, really persisted even with exaggerated short play and exaggerated through the line play that was breaking down a hell of a lot. And with due respect to my own county, if it's breaking down against us, imagine how it will break down against, we'll say, the Limericks and Galways of this world. Now, they were able to turn it on. The second half, and Adrian Mullen, who's like really in like outrageous form at the minute, and is obviously very, very high. He was very high up in our top 10 of hurlers in the country at the moment. He put up another big score. But encouragingly, from an Offaly point of view, with the wind against them and with the momentum of the game going against them, and it looking like they were going to get beaten 12 or 15, which I'd probably worried about beforehand, they knuckled down and got back to 7. No man sent off. No more, just one goal. Oisín Kelly got some game time at the end. Adam Screeney looked dangerous by all accounts at different stages. Charlie Mitchell was dangerous at different stages as well. Dan Ravenhill got some game time at senior level and was impressive at different times and linked up well with Screeney. So definitely from an Offaly point of view, I'd be taking a hell of a lot from that, because just going down like that it is always a good test to go down there. And you could say Kilkenny shot themselves in the foot a bit in the first half, but I think physically we're matching up a lot better. I don't know what's been done in the last 3 or 4 months, but particularly it's not just 3 or 4 months, it's over a period of time. But our conditioning is definitely stacking up a lot better than it did in previous times.
Yeah, there was only like 3,500 or something like that at the game, which was a bit disappointing. Verney conflicted with the old Stockholm syndrome, says James OS. Somebody was going to come in with something like that.
Hardly. I thought it would be you now, to be honest with you, but no, hardly. Yeah. No, I was very enthused now from what I heard, just from a couple of people that were down there, and even I think Adam Screeney gave Mikey Butler a few kind of nervy kind of moments as well, and he sold him a lovely dummy and put the ball over the bar at one stage as well, and I think he had him on a yellow too. Very, very encouraging. Given Shane as well, we weren't aware of this on Thursday's show. And I know I said the two of them probably should have got red at the time, but you had this mad scenario where Jack O'Connor was free to play for Wexford on Sunday after his red card was rescinded, and David King, who never got even a tick or a yellow or a red card in the game, ended up missing the Offaly game with a retrospective ban. Like, the disciplinary system in the GA is absolutely bonkers, you'd have to say. Like, that's mad. Like, it wasn't, because it's almost like because Jack was dealt with on the day, they could appeal. Yeah. Because Kings wasn't dealt with on the day, he could be suspended, and it was just crazy. And obviously the suspension stood or whatever, but it's just kind of a mad scenario. There were two of them at it. Two of them should have probably been suspended, but once King wasn't sent off in the game, you're thinking he's just free to play the next day, and that wasn't how it worked out. It was bizarre.
Yeah, River Power says time for a sit-down protest. Tipperary beat Westmeath 325 to 221 at Semple Stadium. Now, look, let's be realistic enough here. Tipperary were always expected to win this game. It was a much-changed team. In many ways, I think this was an exercise in reducing the size of the panel, because it was always, like forecasted that this was around the time when they cut down the panel. So that's probably a little bit harsh for some, but that's probably the way it is. Now, the other side of it is the Tipperary brought back Noel McGrath, Dan McCormick, Jason Ford, Conor Stapleton. Now, Stapleton in particular was brilliant. He scored 6 points from play. Mark Yo scored 2-1, was taken off early. Probably in a case of, right, he's done his bit today, we'll give someone else a chance. Noel McGrath scored 3 points. Jason Ford scored 1 from play and 11 frees. Now, I've been telling you for a while, brilliant, by the way, Westmeath were really, really good. I've been telling you for a while about David Williams, haven't I? He was playing with the freshers with us in UCD. Scored 2-12, 2-3 from play. This lad is, he's a good bit of stuff. I don't want him getting a big head or whatever, but this lad can hurl.
That's it's also hugely important for Westmeath that they backed up the Limerick game as well. And you can say Tip were all changed, but some of the changes that were coming in were like real experienced like players and lads that will be the, probably the fulcrum of the Tip team potentially come summer. So after shipping a huge beating against Galway the first day out, they've really backed it up, and you'd have to say that is that's encouraging going forward. Particularly, you'd have to say two teams that are in particularly good form at the minute, Westmeath and Offaly, both going to be in the McDonagh next year or this year. So that's kind of encouraging for the two of them, definitely. And no, you've been waxing lyrical about Williams behind the scenes. So to actually go and do it, and again, I always say to you, to go and do it when you're under pressure against a bigger team, and like it's grand doing it and scoring 2-12 when you're winning by 10 or 15 points, to go and do it against quality opposition when you're not expected to win and you're probably not expected to perform that well. Massive kudos.
Yeah, and like you've seen that before, probably been involved in panels where they do that, where, right, here's a match now where a lot of the players who probably haven't seen too much game time, it's basically an exercise in seeing who's going to make the cut and not.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I think Liam Cattle had said that it was the Westmeath game was going to be was in around them was going to be a cutting point. So I'm sure it'll come out in the wash over the coming days who exactly is in and who exactly is out. But it doesn't look like, from squads we've seen so far, and even from the weekend with like Dan McCormick and that coming back in as well, doesn't look like there's anybody obvious going to be missing ratting for the panel for the year ahead. And panel looks a lot more road tested this year than last year, I'd say. You were looking at names on the squad last year and you're thinking, yeah, there's potential there, but they probably haven't got much of a chance to acclimatise to inter-county, whereas a lot of guys between the first 3 league games and even the Munster League as well, they've gotten a good bit of time to shine, and they'll get more time over the next couple of weeks as well. And Tip are one of those teams that look like they're going to go deep enough into the league, you'd imagine. So plenty more time for lads to stake a claim for, the 26 is going to be difficult to get into, given the competitiveness in the squad.
Yeah, we'll have Cian Johnson coming on talking a little bit about the football in a minute, and I know you have to go, but we might just finally touch on Galway. Fairly trimming Antrim. It was 113 to 235. And sure, we're almost on repeat at this stage saying that whatever it is against the teams that aren't quite the challengers for the All-Ireland. Galway always go to town, don't they?
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah, I saw this result yesterday, and obviously it's a nice little spin up to Corrigan Park, and you have to take the logistics of it all in there. But they just seem to be able to lay waste to teams that they lay waste to teams that, you know, on rankings that they should do that. But a lot they say like maybe like Limerick and Dublin was very competitive for stages the other night. Limerick pulled away. Limerick don't tend to hammer those kind of lower ranked kind of teams around 8, 9, 10, 11, whereas Galway absolutely destroyed them. But Limerick could pulverise a big hitter, whereas Galway kind of can't seem to maybe pull it together as consistently against a big hitter. I'd like very, very hard to analyse in the sense of what he actually learning from it. I would say very, very little, because it's kind of frustrating for Henry in a way, because you're playing Tipperary, a couple of little bubbles maybe burst in that game, and lads are going up to Antrim, and you kind of, I mean this in the best way possible, but you're kind of thinking you're great again, and then you go and play a tough game, and you kind of maybe get brought back down to earth again. They probably would have loved another tough game back to back after a tip game, whereas it kind of hasn't really worked out that way, the way their league has been kind of staggered this year. But it's hard to say that you learn much from it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and like Antrim conceded an early, very soft goal. There was a sharp puck out, and the cornerback tried to deliver it somewhere else, but Jason Flynn cleverly got in a block down. And, you know, that kind of set the tone for the game. And you're thinking Antrim, you know, the sickener of that late goal, the mistake against Dublin, which cost them the points there, that had to hurt. On the positive, what a goal, what a finish from Joey McLaughlin in the second half, or was it the first half? Anyway, it was a brilliant goal from him. But Antrim, it's worrying. Minus 53 scoring differential after 3 games. You know, picking it up from there after the way they lost against Dublin, that has to hurt.
Yeah, no, I was actually just looking at these tables last night, and they're very, very informative. Like when you compare like Antrim minus 53, Westmeath minus 44, even Dublin minus 28. Like I'm very happy with Offaly minus 19, because we've been the minus 44, or we've been the minus 53 kind of in recent years. So shows that from an Offaly point of view that they're, you know, been very, very competitive. And that's a promising thing. I still think it'll take a couple of years from an Offaly side, but I think it's coming. Yeah, I have to say, I think it's coming. You'd be quietly optimistic.
Oh, a P-Well 74 going after Galway. Is it a sign that you were soft at heart if you bully the little guy and then struggle with a bully?
Someone else had a comment in that they were flat track bullies. I don't know. It'll be like they don't. They should have plenty of material anyway to prove a few points over the coming months, shall we say?
Yeah, I might just quickly go through some of the other results from the other tiers. So Division 2A round 3, down 124, Kildare the same. That was a draw. Kerry 314, Meath 16 points. And then a big win for Carlow in O'Moore Park. Laois 21 points. The Barrowsiders 123. That's a huge win.
Yeah, massive win. I kind of said it to you. We were chatting to Tom O'Lally before. And he kind of said, because of our pick, we can only target certain competitions. And he said it basically looks like they've really gone after 2A, because making sure they're up in 1B next year, I think will be very important for, you know, the short to longer term in Carlow, and they're in pole position to be there now. The fact that Kildare have drawn with Down as well, kind of, it's probably not you'd probably say it's not the worst result for Laois, I would say as well. Laois are still kind of in the mix. I think I was reading that Ross King is going to be back over the next while. He's expected to feature around Patrick's weekend. He had said on this show last year before the Laois County final that he wasn't sure whether he was going back next year. So he is going to be back. But from a Carlow point of view, that's a big result. Kind of puts one foot in a Division 2A final, you'd imagine, because they're 3 from 3 now, and they've started as they mean to go on. I think Shane Conway was back for Kerry over the weekend and put up a decent score. Like they need all their bigger hitters back, particularly with the Boyles, and lots of experienced players gone out the door. And from a Kildare and Down point of view, it's funny, Kildare would have beaten them in a Ring Cup final in COVID, maybe 2020, but Down have been probably the more consistent over the last couple of years. That was a good result for Kildare up and Down. That was a good result for them. They lost to Meath first time out, so they're kind of on the back foot. Promotion or getting to a final might be just beyond reach, but they've been very, very competitive.
Yeah, just we're going to talk about Dublin Kerry now. Can you stay on for another couple of minutes, or do you have to
Yeah,
go with
couple of minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, with Keane Johnson joining us as well. Look at that Liverpool jersey on. He's pretty happy after the kids managed to get it done against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final. It was brilliant, actually, Keane.
Yeah, no, a sweet one yesterday, to be fair. I'm happy you let me wear it as well. I sent him a message last night, so I wasn't sure if you're a big soccer man or not, but
I don't mind it. It's Verney who doesn't like it.
No, it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't like it. I got on the bandwagon and went to Madrid 4 or 5 years ago for the Champions League final, and celebrated like I was the biggest Liverpool fan of all time. So no, I've no problem.
Keane, I have to ask you about the performance of Dublin and Con O'Callaghan. Like, if you want to reduce it down to the highlights reel or to make a headline out of it, he scored 3-4. David Clifford scored 3 points, but it's not just that can happen at times. But to me, I was looking at Clifford, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. It's probably the same with a lot of people, but he got 4 points from 7 shots, and I think there was a free in there as well. Con scored 3-4 from 9, but it was just at times Clifford looked a little bit out of sorts. He didn't quite look like himself. Blazing over that goal chance, hit a couple of wides. It didn't seem like the usual David Clifford to me.
Yeah, no, look, like, that can't happen on any day, like the All-Ireland final last year, but yeah, I think he had a free and a mark and 2 from play, and like the 2 from play were 2 missed goal chances. Like, I know we talked a couple of weeks ago about goal chances. Like, maybe who am I to be telling David Clifford how to finish? But the Gooch could be giving him a call. Just keep it on the deck, like, and just roll it in, because like he's just going for the blast every time, and it's just flying over the bar. But yeah, look, I thought Owen Merchant on him was really strange at the start, like, because logically, just thinking about it, like, that just doesn't make sense. Because you've the smallest man on the field on Clifford, who's 6'2", and like Clifford's able to win high ball over lads his own size, so it didn't make any sense. But as the game wore on, like, I thought Merchant was unbelievable. Like, the way he was so clever in that he never got really tight to him, because he doesn't want to get into a wrestling match because Clifford can roll him. He's stronger. He stayed far enough away from him that like Clifford couldn't roll him, but he was close enough to put pressure on the shot. And his footwork, like he moved every time. He didn't buy the dummies. He sent Clifford onto his right at one stage in the first half and left it well short. He got a hand in when he could. So I think through Mick Fitzsimons being out and John Small done really well, and Paddy Clifford, I've never seen him as quiet. So I think through a few absentees, Dublin have maybe stumbled upon something that we could see in the All-Ireland semi-final or final stage.
Yeah, Michael, what did you think in terms of the confidence of Clifford? Like, remember even in the second half when he was done for nudging a player in the back and he turned around and he blasted the ball up against the high net, and like the Dublin fans were jeered and all that kind of stuff. And there was a bit of that in the first half as well. Like, it feels even going into last year a little bit. I remember again in the Cork game, he missed quite a few chances. Then the final as well, just wasn't his day. Could confidence perhaps be a little bit low with him at the moment?
First time back in Croke Park since the All-Ireland final last year, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe he put a bit of pressure on himself to kind of put a line through that and maybe right a couple of wrongs. But Keane's talking there like about some of the shots, like they were blasted over. That's not how he usually shoots on goal. It was like, I don't know, it did maybe look like maybe he was feeling a bit of pressure himself. But I've even been in games like that, and when you're not thinking that clearly, you're just trying to put the ball out through the back of the net, and it generally doesn't happen. And he was blazing balls over. Merchant definitely did frustrate him. I'm the same as Keane. I thought that was I thought looking at that, I said to the fella beside me, I said, the last person I would have had on Clifford was Merchant. It was fascinating to look at, because even by inter-county standards, Merchant is small and Clifford is, taller than most inter-county players, and he was able to handle him quite well. Now, he did go off with what looked like a hamstring injury just in front of the Davin there when he gave away a 45 in the second half, which is a bit of a worry. But it's another string to his bow and another string to Dublin's bow. To go back to your question, is Clifford short of confidence? Potentially. It kind of, like, he's definitely played under par the other night. I would still question about him being rushed back as quick as he was rushed back. And I know maybe he papered over some of those cracks last weekend, as did Paddy, but both of them were well below par on Saturday night. And I'd echo Keane's point as well. Like, I've never seen Paddy Clifford as quiet. Like, I didn't realise, I obviously knew he was playing, but he was a non-entity in the game in the first half. He was completely shut down. And from a Dublin point of view, like, that's how we want to see football played, isn't it? Everything was it was, you know, the odd time it was lateral, but nearly every time they were trying to force a run through, or they were trying to force a pass through. Everything was being played on the front foot, and Con was just unstoppable at various stages. Like, he just, like, I'm sure Joe Bradley's going to take credit in the Sunday Independent next week and saying that he's motivating X, Y, and Z. But Dublin definitely looked like they played a different style the other night. They looked like they wanted to make a bit of a statement. And even like, you know, the various stages where I saw Brian Fenton fist pump and even winning a free or something like that, they wanted to lay down a bit of a marker the other night, and they certainly did.
And just ask you then, Keane, about, you know, you've been a forward for years, Con O'Callaghan playing as a forward. Like, I know from the hurling days with Kula that, you know, sometimes playing on the opposition team and maybe been a sweep or whatever, he turns and goes at you. You're like, I don't want any part of this. I keep backing off and hope he just takes the point. And Lee Keegan made a great point about how good his stutter step is also. Give me your thoughts on his performance and what you're seeing when you see Con O'Callaghan.
Yeah, look, he looks like a really motivated player at the minute. Look, he's just so hard to stop one-on-one. And like them backdoor cuts, like, I mean, they're undefendable. Like Lee Keegan was talking about it last night. He knows as well as anyone. And he has such a nice dummy bounce he caught Foley with in the second half, where he holds it in his right hand, takes it back in, Foley bought it, he swings it over in the left. Like, when he's playing like that, the power he has, the pace, he has finishing off both feet. He's brilliant at finishing goal chances. So, yeah, look, he looks like he has the bit between his teeth. And look, I think Dublin in that first half, like, they were awesome. Like, I mean, I think they scored 2-10 from 12 shots in about the first 25 minutes. Like, I think the first wide from play was Kilkenny after about 31 minutes. So,
yep,
like, that's insane shooting. And like, as bad as Kerry were, like, after 15 minutes it was 1-4, and Kerry had a couple of wides as well. It was kind of the middle of the first half where Dublin really killed them. And I know you and Michael were talking about that in hurling a few weeks ago, that if you switch off for any amount of time, like, a good team can just bury you. Because that 10 minutes, Dublin outscored Kerry 1-5 to a point. And like, that was essentially the winning of the game. But like, I was listening to Jack O'Connor after, and he was saying that their kickouts malfunctioned at both ends. And I think that really was the key difference in the game, because Dublin scored 1-9 directly off their own kickout. And there was times where it was like 3 kicks of a ball. There was not a hand being laid on anyone. It was so passive from Kerry, and they were just getting shots away. But I think some of the problems came from, like, Kerry's front six were trying to put on a press, but the rest of the team wasn't coming up behind them. So, like, there was 6 Kerry bodies inside the 45, then there was a massive load of space in midfield, and then the Kerry back. So either, like, the rest of the team has to come up behind them if they're putting on a press, or the 6 forwards need to come back, because it was really disjointed. And when there's so much space between the gaps in the lines, you know, Dublin will just kill you with their athleticism. And there was one score that just summed up really, was like, Lee Gannon got a kick out, and I think he ran the whole length of the field. Nobody put a hand on him. He gave it to Fenton. Fenton actually dropped the ball, picked it up again. Nobody touched him. Gave it to Scully. Scully was on the edge of the D and just kicked it over. And like, I mean, it's just, when you're playing non-contact football like that with Dublin, they're just going to kill you.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we put this at the foot of the management and say, well, why isn't your team playing in unison here? The flip side is, you could say there's a lot of players who, you know, they might have played before, but not a huge amount. So, for example, we say Dylan Gainey hasn't played that much. Killian Burke hasn't that much. Joe O'Connor's obviously been around for a while, but he had the cruise ship, maybe hasn't played that much. Damien Burke started. Dylan Casey's been around for a bit, but maybe hasn't had that much game time over the past couple of years. So could we give Kerry any sort of an out here?
Maybe, yeah. But at the same time, like, they've been back trending a good while. And like I don't think there's really any excuse for not being organised on kickouts both ends, because, you know, there's going to be 50 to 60 situations in a game where you have to defend or play your own kickouts. So I don't know, like, even on Kerry's kickout as well, like, when Dublin decided to press, Kerry went long 11 times and Dublin won 6. So they had less than 50% on their long kickouts. Now, they did get the short ones away, but I think, like, Dublin are the best team in the country at zonally pressing a kick out in play, because, like, it's very easy to press a kick out when there's a free, because everyone has time to set up, and we see loads of teams doing that. But when the game is scrambled and you're tired, to actually get to your right zone and not be, like, we see where, like, Lee Gannon might run forward and kick a point, but he'll stay in the number 10 spot rather than running the whole way back to wing back. And they're just really good at communicating that. And, like, you see the camera from behind the goals where Shane Ryan is looking out and he's just seeing a wall of blue. Like, I've never played in goals, but I can imagine, like, that's a lonely spot. And you can't pin it all on him either. Like, if the runs aren't there, there's not much he can do.
Yeah, just in terms then of inside duels in football at the moment, I wanted to ask you about this. Like, what county has the best pair of inside forwards? Now, you could say Con, and you're not entirely sure who'll play in there with him. Like, it could be Cormac Costello, could be Paddy Small, who scored a couple of nice points the other day. Then you've got David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, but like you wonder, is there enough outside to get the ball in there, and can they actually afford to play the two of them in there? Derek Hanavan and Darren McCurry both got some brilliant scores the other day. You could potentially have Comer and Walsh inside together, but like sometimes I'm naming two names here, but you're not necessarily going to see them play inside together, so maybe that rules them out. But who would be the best duo of inside forwards?
Yeah, you make a good point there. Yeah, because like automatically you would think Clifford and O'Shea, but like the more you think about it, like when it comes to summertime, you think you're just going to see O'Shea at 11. But I'd like to see Paul Mannion back inside when he's fully fit with Con, because I think that time around 2017, 18, 19, like Mannion won 3 All-Stars in a row and he was playing inside. And I think him and Con, there's a nice balance to it, because Mannion has the left, Con has the right, and they both have serious pace. So I think that would probably be the best duo, because we're most likely to see them both there, and just the balance and the pace that they both have. Outside of that, like Walsh and Comer, when they're both fit and flying, look, they are a serious handful. But then again, like Walsh does drift out a bit. And I know we might talk about Galway Tyrone in a bit, but like the problem with Walsh and Comer and a lot of the Galway players is they're not available enough. Like sometimes the best ability is availability, and they're just Galway's best players are just injured a lot. Canavan and McCurry as well. Like McCurry, he was injured for a while and he wasn't named to start, but like he has it. Like he has all the tools. He's a top class forward. I don't know why he doesn't start more often, but him and Canavan would definitely be up there. And another one that we haven't seen as much, but Oisin Gallen and Paddy McBrearty, I think, have the potential to be really up there, because Oisin Gallen has had huge injury trouble, and he's a player that, like, on his day can be as good as anyone in the country. And McBrearty is the leader that's on the Galway team now. Like, he's the only kind of link left from McGuinness's first team. He's the captain. He looks in very good shape. He looks as fit as he's ever been. So I think Gallen and McBrearty could have a big couple of years.
And then I'm thinking Oisin O'Neill, and sometimes a player wears number 14 a lot and you're almost convinced that he should or does play full forward. Michael Murphy being the obvious example. He always wore 15, even if he was back on his own 21. But could Oisin O'Neill paired up with Conor Turbot or somebody like that, could they force themselves into conversation? Or Rian O'Neill isn't going to play in there, so why have this discussion?
Yeah, no, Armagh moving well, and I really like Conor Turbot. His nickname is Turbo because he has serious pace. But
very creative, isn't it?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, but I don't know about, like, everyone says it's like you said with Michael Murphy, and almost like Joe Canning and hurling, or Aidan O'Shea. It's like, put him in full forward, and then like he's just never going to be in there for long enough. And like Rian O'Neill is a player who needs to be in the thick of the action, like, and when you're playing inside, like, it's the one position that, if it's not going your way, you have to, when you're playing inside, you have to wait for the action to come to you rather than go and get yourself into it. So I don't think Rian will ever be in there for long enough. That's a tasty enough duo if Armagh can get that one going.
Yeah. Just to move on then to Tyrone beating Mayo. So that was 115 to 111. When Cillian O'Connor scored a penalty, Mayo looked like they should be in control, but Tyrone completely took over. And we already mentioned both McCurry and Canavan. They just got some brilliant scores. But I saw an interview since, or some quotes from Peter Canavan, and he said, a word I don't like is transition. He's talking about all the players not available or who have moved away from the panel since 2021. He goes, a word I don't like is transition, because it's a cop-out for a team not performing well. He asked it as a question, is it a cop-out? Unfortunately, since Tyrone won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago, we've had 70 players that have worn the county jersey. That's unreal. There simply has been too many players dropped for different reasons, or dropped out for different reasons. And I'm definitely not laying this at the manager's door. The support structure in Tyrone for county teams are not good enough for the present era. The club structure in Tyrone is very strong. The preparation and how well teams are looked after at club level is excellent. And it's too easy maybe for players to drop out and to go back. Just your thoughts then on Tyrone anyway.
Yeah, I've never seen such a contrast in two halves of football in that game in my life. Like at half time, you had Peter Canavan and Cora Staunton talking about rule changes, how bad it is, and then at full time, it's a great game. Like it was unbelievable. Like Tyrone were sitting so deep. I couldn't believe if they were any deeper, they would have been out in the car park. Like they were, like not even, like most teams set up in the 45. They were literally about 30 yards from their goal, And Mayo were kind of like, the onus is on you to come get the ball back. And Tyrone were like, well, you have to come break us down. And you're just left with this stalemate. Like, Tyrone had 5 shots in the first half, and Mayo had 4. Like, there's 9 shots in 37 minutes of football. Like, I couldn't believe it. And it's almost like a team has to go in and then get a kick up the hole from the management team and come out like completely new Tyrone in the second half. And you're just thinking, like, why can't they just start the game like this? Like, they came out and they were pressing kickouts and they were all up in Mayo's face, and they were level after about 5 minutes, and they went on to win the game comfortably. So, yeah, like, obviously the McCurry thing with Canavan was massive, because even Niall Morgan mentioned it in his interview. He was saying that they didn't have an out ball, and McCurry gave him that link into Canavan, because in the first half, like, Canavan was having to come to the 45, 50 metres out to get the ball and then try to burrow his way to the goal. Whereas when he had McCurry to play off, McCurry was able to make the first run and get the ball and then feed him. So he was only 25, 30 yards from the goal. Like, that was a massive change in the game. And, like, I mean, Canavan is just joy to watch. Like, he reminds me kind of like Eden Hazard in soccer. Like, he's so kind of low to the ground, low centre of gravity, the agility, and he rides a tackle so well. And he almost, like, invites the contact. He invites you to have a nibble at him, and then he just goes. Look, and he's unbelievable. Like, I think he scored 119 in his last 2 Sigerson games and 2 games with Tyrone. Now, in a caveat to that, like, you can clip this up, because I don't like defending. No, I don't like defending, but I'm a forwards man all day. I love Canavan as much as anyone, but I think sometimes he gets very soft frees. And, like, as a defender, like, he's coming at you, like, a fast player is coming at you. He's taking 7 or 8 steps, and if you touch him, it's going to be a free. Like, what chance have you got? And, like, there's a lot of talk in the game now that there's no one-on-one defenders, and, you know, it's gone out of the game, and that's why teams bring so many bodies back. But, like, if a lad's allowed to take 7 or 8 steps and you can't touch him, and if a ball gets kicked in, he can put his hand up and take a free shot at the goals. Like, I mean, I wouldn't like to be a cornerback.
And, you know, with Jarlath Burns, now officially the 41st president of the GAA, he was talking about his football review committee, if we can call it that. And Jim Gavin is part of it. Eamon Fitzmaurice is part of it. There's a few other people involved as well who obviously know the game very, very well. You were talking there about, at halftime of that Tyrone game, they were talking about rules. After the game, they're talking about the match itself. What would you like to see them change? What would you like to see them address? And you kind of mentioned the attacking mark there, or advanced mark, if you want to call it that, with the hand up. And my God, I hate nothing more than seeing that arm up for the advanced mark. What would you like to see change? What do they need to go after? And should managers be the ones who are like, does a manager like Jim Gavin and Eamon Fitzmaurice, are they going into this thinking, well, this is what I'd like to see, or this is what we need to put in that will make the sport more appealing to the casual viewer? Because if we're going to grow the sport, like, kids have got to look at it and think, I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's hard to know. But, like, this idea has been thrown around, and I think it's worth a go at least. Right. So I think if you have to be restricted, so you have to keep 3 players in the opposition 45 and 3 players in your own 45. So that will essentially let you, if you want to bring everyone back, you only have 12 players to defend with. And if your goalie's in goal, you have 11. So straight away, you have less players to cover the space, really, for a team attacking. So just for example, like, say Kerry are playing Dublin, right? So Kerry leave David Clifford, Sean O'Shea and Paul Geaney up, and marking them would be, say, Mick Fitzsimons, John Small and Owen Merchant. And on the far side then you'd have Con, Mannion and Cormac Costello being marked by Jason Foley, Thomas Sullivan and, say, Tyg Morley. Right, so straight away, if you turn over the ball, when the team's attacking you, you have somewhere to go. You have an incentive to kick the ball. You have an incentive to go forward, because you're going to have 3 lads up. At the minute, when you turn over the ball, most teams look up. There's nobody in there. So what happens is teams end up hand-passing the ball around, and lads are literally not even looking at the ball, just doing a mass run to the far end of the pitch to get your attacking formation set up, and then the opposition get back, and then we're into 2 or 3 minutes of, you know, throw the ball around. You can go make a cup of tea and come back, and you won't miss anything. So I think it could really work, because straight away it eliminates teams dropping off the kick out, because you have to have 3 lads up there. So it'll incentivize you to push up, because dropping off the kick outs kills the game. Because you're watching a game, a team gets a score, you're like, right, come on, here we go, get another one, press the kick out, and then everyone's back inside your own half, keeper chips at the corner back, and we're looking at more possession again. So I think, look, it'll really incentivize attacking play. and just to see the best of the best players. Like, you know, like there's not enough creativity and really good scores in the game now, because like Canavan or someone or Clifford will kick a score and people will be like, wow, that's unreal. But like, people shouldn't be so wowed about that. Like I've been watching football for a good amount of time, but I remember even 10 years ago, like, to be so many good scores in one game. But now it seems like it's so rare. But I think, like, when you grow up playing football, like, it's free flowing. You know, there's loads of attacking. You're kicking the ball. There's dummy solos, dummy hand passing, and then you get to senior level, and like you're met with this kind of running version of handball, and it's just like, it's not enjoyable. Like, if you were growing up, like, you'd play soccer or something else. Like, you don't play that when you're younger. And I think, look, like, there's good creative players dropping off panels all over the country, and like, managers are forced to pick players who can put 10k up in the GPS and can bench 120 kg, but it's just you know, it's not easy on the eye a lot of the time.
Yeah, okay. Well, folks, get your comments in and let us know if you agree or disagree, or what you would like to see that football review committee look at, because next year is a rule changes year. So it's a really good time now for this to be done. And to be fair, best of luck to Jarlath Burns and all the people involved in that, because football does need some tweaks. I'm not saying it all needs to be thrown out the window, because there are still brilliant games out there, but the long periods of, you know, the chess match, which is sort of euphemistically called, it would be no harm if that was tweaked a little bit and get rid of that advanced mark. It's absolute rubbish. Roscommon 116, Monaghan 17. Like, Monaghan have been in a bit of a tailspin since they won at Croke Park. Remember that thrilling performance they had? They've lost their last 3 games by 9 points, 13 and 12. Whereas the flip side for Davy Burke is, it was tepid enough last week. Everyone knows what was said after the game, but he finally got a reaction. They finally have a win on the board.
Yeah, no, he got what he was looking for, Davy, in fairness. And yeah, I didn't get to see much of it now, just the highlights. But yeah, look, it seems like they're trying to get their season up and running. And I just seen there, someone had a stat that I think they've 11 points in 11 Division 1 games under Davy Burke, which is fair going. And if they can, I think they've Mayo next week in Castlebar. So I think if, you know, one more win and you're nearly looking at being safe. And look, that would be massive for Roscommon to have sustain seasons in Division 1, because normally they just bounce up and down. And the same thing with Monaghan. But I think the small thing is just like teams being relegated, and the fear of relegation, I think, is a small bit kind of overplayed, because it's almost like, you know, oh, we're going to get relegated now, this is a disaster. But like, when you look at the gap, like, between the top kind of 10, 12 teams to the rest, like, a team going to Division 2 like isn't the end of the world. Like, because like, you look at Dublin and Derry last year, they're way too good for everyone. Armagh, Donegal are doing that at the minute. Like, almost every team in Division 1, like Monaghan have been there 10 years, and Kerry, like, every other team has spent time in Division 2. And Dublin won the All-Ireland from Division 2 last year. Mayo were in Division 2 in 21, and they got to the All-Ireland final. So like say if Galway get relegated, like, Galway aren't going to get stuck in Division 2, or like, they're not going to slip back to Division 3. So like, in some ways you can blood players and you can win games a lot easier. Like, if you were to ask Jim McGuinness, like, going in his first season, would he like to be in Division 1 now, scrapping for to stay up, or they're winning games every week and they're building a game plan? So like, the relegation thing for the big teams, I think sometimes is a bit overplayed.
Yeah, okay. And then just in terms of Derry beating Galway the way they did, it was tight enough, and then you had the Kieran Malloy situation where he was done on a black card. Was it a black card? Like, the ball was being popped over the bar, the referee went back, gave a black card, gave a penalty, it was converted. That kind of was all she wrote. And then Paul Cassidy got a great goal. Worth mentioning that Ethan Doherty was involved in the build-up to both goals. He's such an influential player. But was it a black card? What would you say about Galway in general? Like, Niall Daly had 2 goal chances in the 1 goal against Niall Morgan, should have scored it. That was an important type of the game. But like, at what stage are Galway just going to have to get over these injuries and actually start to produce some, you know, some better performances, some bigger or some good wins?
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I like, when I seen Derry come down, an informed team in the country, I thought Derry would win a bit more comfortably. Like, there wasn't a whole pile in the game. As you said there, the turning point was that goal chance from Niall Daly, because he missed that, and then Derry went straight down the field and got the penalty. So from being possibly Galway being in front to being 4 down, it was a big switch in the game. Look, I don't know about the black card, like, by letter of the law, like a deliberate pull down or trip, like, he kind of it was kind of a closed fist, maybe to the rib, a yellow card technically, but you can see why the ref thought it was a black. He was going straight in on goal, but like, that's the thing. Like, Kieran Malloy actually gave that ball away first, and then he tried to rectify his mistake. And we see that a lot across loads of sports, is that, like compounding mistakes. Like how often do you see if someone will give the ball away and then they'll foul? Like it's just it's just that you can't resist. You're trying so hard to rectify it, and then it's it takes such discipline to, if you give the ball away, just to pull back a bit. But like Galway shot themselves in the foot, because about 2 minutes later, Sean McCurran kind of grappled Brendan Rodgers to the ground, and it was inside Derry's box, so far away from Galway's goal. He got a black card, so they were down to 13, and like any chance they had of winning the game was gone at that stage. But yeah, like Derry weren't at their best, but there was a couple of things that I noticed. Conor Glass was actually getting really far forward compared to normal. He won a mark in the first half, which I think is a really smart move from Derry, because like nobody's going to compete with him in the air if the ball's floated in there, and it's obviously something they're working on. And he kicked 2 more from play, and I think that's something we could see more of, because he's so good going forward. And I think under Rory Gallagher he was used more defensively, and he's such an honest player. He puts in such a shift. He helps tackle and double up, but he's well able to get forward and get scores. And just about Derry and their attacking, like they've had 7 goals so far in the first 4 league games, and 7 different goal scorers. So they had Conor Doherty, Pádraig McGrogan, Conor Glass, Owen McAvoy, Conor McCluskey, and Shane McGuigan. Like this narrative that they're too reliant on McGuigan and there's no help, or they won't get enough scores, I think it's just really lazy. I think that they've threats coming from everywhere, and no more than Kerry or reliant on Clifford, or Galway and Shane Walsh, or Dublin and Con. They're going to need 5 or 6 points from McGuigan to win All-Ireland. Of course they are, but is it going to stop them winning All-Ireland? I don't think so.
And I saw Lee Keegan, who's a very good pundit, saying afterwards about the Kieran Malloy incident and that it ruined the contest, which I suppose in a way the 2 black cards did. But we don't always agree with the application of the rules. And he was talking about consistency in the refereeing. But I think anybody talking about wanting consistency in decisions across myriad games, and teams are always trying to get an edge, and they're always trying to push it to the limit and see if they can dive or if they can tug a lad back or whatever. The idea of looking for consistency, it's just not possible, because whether it's human decision making or technology assisted, as we're seeing in soccer and rugby, you're still going to get the wrong decisions, because it's so subjective. You don't always have the perfect angle, you don't always have whatever. Consistency just is not possible, Keane.
No, exactly, yeah. And if there is a VAR or whatever, and they look at that, what do you come to? It's up to the ref at the end of the day. And we talked about black cards ruining the game and rule changes. I don't know if there's some sort of hooter system or something that can come in, because teams burning up to 10 minutes when they get a black card is one of the biggest blights in the game. The 10 minutes of a black card is absolutely terrible to look at, because one team is just trying to survive it, and the other team is just getting so frustrated with the feign and injury. And if a lad goes down and holds his head, what is the referee meant to do? Because if he doesn't stop the game, what if it's a genuine head injury? And then a referee is going to be shot then if he doesn't stop the game. And then when he does, the other team, everybody knows what's happening. I don't understand why a linesman can't have a watch and just press stop on it in the 10 minutes, because then at least teams know, look, there's no point in us trying to crawl our way through this. So yeah, that's definitely something that should be looked at, I think.
Yeah, okay, and we'll just blitz through some of the games in Division 2. Armagh won 9, Donegal 12. They were both fairly free scoring before this, but a bit of a tighter one here. And geez, we were talking about Darren McCurry and his couple of perler scores. They were both outside of the foot. Rory Grugan's was it's gorgeous to watch.
Yeah, Grugan's a lovely player. Yeah, he's we're talking about leaving 3 up. Imagine leaving him up with Rian O'Neill and Conor Herbert or something. He's just beautiful to watch. His dummies, he's not afraid to throw one off the outside the boot. I think Donegal missed a couple of goal chances, and Armagh are the only team across the country that haven't conceded a goal yet. So there was a bit of kind of arguing on the sideline with Tim McGuinness and McGeaney as well. I think there was some words said. I'm not sure whether the interviews they gave was what was actually said or not, but I think that's something we'll see probably over the next couple of years. But I don't know. I think Armagh, at this stage, I think Armagh should be able to beat Donegal, because McGeaney's been there. Is his 9th season? Or his 10th season maybe?
I think 9. Yeah, 9.
Yeah, he's so far down the road with them, whereas Jim McGuinness is just in. I know Armagh brought in Conor Gilligan with them this year in the backroom team, who's a really good coach, and they have Donaghy there as well. But it really is, it's time for Armagh to do something. I know the penalty shootouts have really caught them in the last couple of years. They're so close to the last 4, but yeah, look, it's time for Armagh to kind of take the next step.
Yeah, actually, McGeaney had 1 year as a selector / coach under Paul Grimley as well. So he's definitely around there a long, long time. The other results in Division 2, Cork got a huge win against Fermanagh in Ederney. It was like 5-hour trip each way. So, I mean, at least they can go back in good spirits because they've been under a bit of pressure. Louth 3-9, Cavan 2-13. So that's a 1-point win for Cavan. And then Meath 12, Kildare 9. So Meath stay in the promotion hunt while Kildare, they're rock bottom at 0 points. The performance is okay for a while, but Meath got the last 4 points to win by 3. So that's obviously not ideal for Glen Ryan either. But I suppose there's something of a reaction in that performance contrasted with Armagh last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, it's not what they wanted, but I think Ben McCormick went off injured. He was just after kicking 2 points. I think Derek Irwin got injured as well, so they were a bit under strength. Yeah, look, it's not ideal. They're probably getting relegated now, but the one thing that can save them is their championship. Like they're on the opposite side of Dublin, so I think they'll probably have Louth and maybe Westmeath to get to a Leinster final. So, like if they can pull it together, they can still make something out of their season. But yeah, look, Colin Rourke's kind of turning around with Meath. They had a really difficult start, and like they have the safety net of winning the Tailteann last year, so they're straight into the championship. And after.
I think we might have lost Keane just there. So I'll just go through some of the other results. But that is a fair point in terms of Meath and their progress this year. Just having that Tailteann Cup backup, having won it last year, I think it's really showing its value there now because fair enough, they're uncertain in terms of like where they'll finish in Division 2 just yet, and having to negotiate Leinster Championship, getting all the way to the final. It is nice having that in the bag already. Division 3, just the results there. Sligo 120. Keane is back with us. Keane, I'm just going to read out the last few results there. Just lost you there for a moment. But Division 3, Sligo 120, Sligo 120, Antrim 113, Westmeath 14 points, Limerick 1-8, Clare 215, Wicklow 8 points, and Down 412, Offaly 214. Division 4 sees Carlow 214, Leitrim 116, Tipperary 17, Laois 11 points, Longford 312, London 110, and Wexford 21 points, Waterford 17. Just any final thoughts, if you want to go back to your Meath comment, or any thoughts on those games?
Yeah, no, Meath, as I said, had a kind of the safety net of being in the All-Ireland through the Tailteann, so it's pressure's kind of off them a small bit, but like Louth losing the Cavan yesterday by a point, they were so close to getting a few results, and in fairness, Ger Brennan has kind of carried on the high standards from Mickey Hart. So yeah, look, it's the bottom end of Division 2 is probably the most interesting in the last couple of weeks because teams are trying to save their season. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what happens anyways.
Okay, and then just before we finish up, then any of the Division 3 or 4 teams, even your own Offaly, any thoughts on their performances so far this year?
Yeah, no, look, we're struggling big time. I think we're 0 from 4 now, so put in a good, decent enough performance against Down, because Down are the best team in Division 3 really, along with Westmeath. But it's going to be a mini league really with Offaly, Wicklow, and Limerick. Like 2 from that 3 is going. Offaly have Limerick at home, Wicklow at home next week, and then Limerick at home in their last game. So hopefully home advantage can save us. But yeah, look, it's difficult. It's kind of transition with younger players, and that I think a small thing is like Clare are like, they should have beaten Westmeath. They were done out of it with that square ball, and like they're third on 8 or 6 points, Westmeath on 8. Like to lose that many players and their manager, like I think Mark Fitzgerald and them Clare players deserve serious credit for the way they've kept it going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think we've touched on everything from the show today. So my thanks to Michael Verney earlier and Keane Johnson as well. We'll be back again on Thursday. Thanks very much, Keane. Chat soon.
See you soon.